I'm a man in my mid-20s. Something unbelievable happened to me a while ago, and it hasn't stopped. 3 months ago, I posted something very angry in this community. At that time, I was failing at everything I did. I was running out of money, and my girlfriend had just dumped me. So, I became angry at the world and cursed the sky itself. But why? Someone read my post and sent me a message. He said he would help me out and give me some money. At first, I thought he was a scammer, so I told him my bank account number and said I would kill him if he didn't pay me. But he actually deposited $1,800 into my account. I was so surprised that I eventually agreed to meet him. But I didn't realize at the time that it was a temptation from Satan. I showed up at the address he gave me. It was a building in the middle of a city, and I went into room 632 where I was supposed to meet him. There was a large open space inside, and in the center was an artificial fountain with some sort of red liquid flowing through it. I couldn't see clearly, but it felt as if it was filled with red smoke. After a while, a man walked into the room wearing an angry expression. It wasn't until I heard him laughing that I realized he was actually smiling. It seemed as if he was forcing the smile. He said his name was Malozul and offered his hand. His hand was reddish-brown and looked like leather, not human skin. I was surprised when I saw his face up close. His eyes looked like red jewels, but they were so cracked that they looked like they might break at any moment. His nose was long and harpoon-like, and his Filterman jaw had teeth sticking out like horns.
You asked why life is so painful, and I called you here to give you the answer. It's because demons like me are manipulating your life behind the scenes to make you miserable. We get tremendous pleasure from tormenting people, so we work like hell to hear the screams of one more individual.
Okay, did you really think wearing a mask with such an ugly nose and talking like that would fool me?
I pulled his nose, which immediately cut my hand.
Ah, what is this? Is this a real nose?
He was holding a cup in one hand that looked like it was made of human skin, and he scooped up some red liquid from the fountain and handed it to me.
I've seen the evil talent within you. You hated the world. You hated God. That's the spirit we need. Satan wants to use people like you as a part of his army. If you become Satan's servant, you will realize how truly boring human life has been so far.
The liquid in the cup he handed me gave off an astoundingly sweet scent. I took a sip, and it was as sweet as 1,000 cans of cola coursing through my entire body. I was so dazed by the overwhelming ecstasy that I dropped the cup on the floor.
Everyone runs to the fountain and licks it like a dog after just one drink, but you're calm.
He suddenly shouted in an unknown language, and a beautiful woman walked in. Her skin was as moist as water, and her lips were red and shiny like rubies. She was so insanely beautiful that I cursed without even realizing it. She walked over and touched my cheek, and my chin trembled.
If this is part of the bargain, I'll become Satan's servant immediately.
Such a happy slave, aren't you?
I slapped myself to try to come to my senses.
But I'm a free spirit. I don't want to be a slave.
Ha! You have never enjoyed true freedom in your life. Have you ever exploited someone to your heart's content? Or have you ever bullied someone till you've had your fill? I know full well that you've led a boring life your entire existence.
As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly started vomiting. Somehow, wads of cash poured out of his mouth. I was shocked, but the wads of cash kept spewing out and piling up.
Satan said this: the greatest thing in the world is pleasure. What beautiful words they are!
He wiped his tears with a bill. Then he put the cash in a bag and gave it to me.
Give your soul to Satan, and the world will be yours for the taking.
Without saying a word, I took the money bag and left. The streets were still full of people scurrying around. They didn't know anything. I felt nauseous. I went to the bank to find out if the money was real or fake. I walked up to the counter and handed them a bundle of cash. The banker looked intently at the bills.
This money is from Duke Astaroth. Would you like me to deposit it into your account or exchange it for new money?
I realized that the banknote had a devil's face on it. Is that the face of Astaroth? After leaving the bank, I returned home. There was another message from the strange man. It was about creating a soul contract. After thinking about it for a few days, I couldn't forget that beautiful woman, so I went back to the building from before. He welcomed me with open arms. As he came closer to hug me, I took a step back in shock because his whole body was on fire. He laughed.
Are you ready to set the world on fire?
What happens if I make a contract with Satan?
Then you become a low-level devil. Your first mission will be to make 4 people around you, including your friends and family, suffer. Make them shed tears of blood and gnash their teeth with hatred. Then gradually increase that number. This is how you rise through the ranks. So far, I've driven 137 people into a sea of despair, and 82 people into a whirlpool of anger. That's why I live in a top-class penthouse.
I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in such horrible things. I'm naturally kind.
I turned around and tried to leave. Then he suddenly shouted in that unknown language again in an angry voice. And numerous transparent snakes came out of his mouth and sped toward me. The snakes climbed up my body and started biting me everywhere, and I felt the pain of being bitten by dozens of teeth. Ah! As I felt the blood draining from my body, I saw the transparent snakes' bodies filling with red blood. I ran away, writhing in pain, running out of the building and falling to the ground. People passing by came up to me asking if I was okay, and before I knew it, all the snakes had disappeared. I was taken away in an ambulance, and the doctor asked why I had dozens of bite marks on my body, but I couldn't answer. From that day on, I had heard the voices of countless people shouting in my head.
I will make you experience the greatest pain!
And bizarre things started happening to me every day. I felt tremendous pain, as if hot spears were piercing my body. But all the tests at the hospital showed no abnormalities. A pastor passing by on the street saw me and hit me with a cross as if he was trying to kill me. My friends were distressed, saying they kept hearing the words, "I want to kill you," in their heads every time they met me. It was clear something was going on, but no one believed me. Not the police, not my family, no one. If anyone knows how I can escape, please let me know.
First and foremost, I'd like to state that I am a Romanian, and that the following story is as true as possible. Well, it happened a few years ago, when I was at university in a rather small town. I was renting a nice apartment with my cousin, who was 2 years younger than me. We were at the same college. One day, after we finished classes, he and I were walking quietly home, which was half a mile away. We'd had a long day and were exhausted. I'd like to point out that it was around 3 p.m. at the time. Everything was fine until we were about 100 yards away from our apartment. We were talking about tomorrow's tests and other issues when we noticed a guy looking at us suspiciously near the park. I told my cousin to ignore him, move on. I was trying to be calm so as to not show fear or panic. That man approached the street parallel to our apartment and stumbled there, looking at the gate. To be honest, I was a bit reticent about him and his intentions, but I walked up to the gate and gave him a nasty look. The guy didn't move from there and didn't seem bothered by me. The only gesture sketched by the madman was a sadistic smile. I ignored that and went inside with my cousin. On Friday, we didn't have any work, so we relaxed. We ordered some pizza and watched a soccer match. It was 5:30 p.m., and I decided to go out for a run. My cousin stayed in the apartment, talking on the phone with a friend. I stepped out of the yard, and a few steps from the gate, I heard sounds behind me. I thought it was a dog or something, but I decided to turn around and see what it was. Surprise! It was still the same strange man. Furious, I turned to him, asked him why was he following me. He said nothing, turned his back, and walked away. Confused, I continued my run and made up all sorts of theories. What if he was a robber? What if he was a criminal? What if he needed help? I stopped and calmed down a bit, trying to ignore those intrusive thoughts. It was deathly quiet on the street until my phone rang. It was my cousin. I answered it and asked him why he was calling. His voice was shaking. He said he heard someone knocking on the door, and when he looked out the peephole, it was the same crazy guy. I told him that I'd come as soon as I could and that he should hide. 5 minutes later, I got to the gate and saw the man. He had some kind of hammer in his hand. I grabbed a brick in my hand and ran towards him. I yelled at him and threw the brick over his feet. He made a sound of pain and started coming towards me. I was nervous, but I didn't let my emotions show and make me vulnerable. So I charged at him, kicked him hard in the shin. He dropped the hammer and fell to the ground. My cousin came outside and told me to come inside because he had something important to say. The keys to the door were missing. Just before the police came, I checked the stranger's pockets. They were not on him. The police told us that the guy was a burglar who had robbed 4 houses in the neighborhood. We searched with them for the keys, and we couldn't find them. I changed the locks, and frankly, I don't want to go through that again.